have been given a special tax, very, very special, and a big tax to talk about corruption and culture in the world. I'll try and be brief, but I'll be relatively detailed in certain areas, focus on Africa, and I've intentionally not added some examples because anytime you talk about corruption, the numbers involved, it brings some kind of emotions. However, we'll do our best to move on. But as an introductory part, I want to say that corruption has been with humanity since creation. However, the trend is gaining traction in recent times. From the Americas to Africa to Asia to the Middle East and to Europe, countries have various exposures in corruption. In Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, many countries fall below the 50% average set by Transparency International India global assessment of countries under corruption. And systemic and other forms of corruption are becoming very much prevalent. Look at the global CPI 2022 by Transparency International, saying that 100 countries were assessed. That's the danger here. The global average was only 43 out of 100. Over 2/3 of countries scored below 50. 26 countries has fallen to their lowest score in the last 5 years. 155 countries have not made any significant progress or they have declined since 2012. Global peace has indicated there's a deterioration in peace and security across the globe, with Africa and West Africa in particular in focus. And countries with low progress, low results are unable to progress. And this is a benchmark of what global crisis, conflict, what they call it, Transparency International said about. If we check the state of Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, our average score is 32% out of 100. And even across the globe, the West that we tend to rely on could not even score 70%. So it means that corruption and other indicators are becoming issues that we must begin to contend with. We'll look at the key issues as we move on. And Africa is a critical point because all of us subsist under that continent. That estimates that about 88.6 billion is lost in Africa, which is about 3.7% of the GDP of annual flows of illicit finance from African continent. And corruption leads to lack of effective healthcare, quality education, accessible justice, and accountable and responsive democracy. Millions of our people live under extreme poverty. 70% of Africa's population is under the age of 30 years, and the youth constitutes about 42% of the 8 billion population of the world. And as I said, we have a CPI average of 32, and 44 of the 49 countries that were assessed scored below 50% of the CPI, and less than 25% of the whole GDP is spent on health, and 58% less is spent on education. These are just some perspective I want us to understand. It is estimated about 140 billion is lost in Africa yearly. This is equivalent to about 5 countries' GDP. Income loss is enough to provide some resources from a lot of households. And 43%, as I said, percent of people are living under extreme poverty. And as I said, over 50 billion is stolen and sent out of Africa every year. Despite the efforts by governments, educational training institutions, and development agencies, Africa regrettably has fallen into what we refer to as the equilibrium trap. All the things that we do goes back and comes back to hit us on the face. Incentives are strong for individual institutions to indulge in corruption. The traditional focus of the search or fight for corruption has been focusing on the executive political entity, leaving the rest of the people who form the leadership bracket in Africa. Other branch of government, private sector, traditional economy, religious entities, and the public are normally excluded when we are talking about corruption. And we are recommending the widening of this scope to ensure that everybody within the leadership bracket, traditional, formal, informal, religious or otherwise, is brought into the bracket as we discuss corruption. Despite all the efforts, we are falling into a trap where we can't recover in the way. Incentives are stronger, and as I said, a lot of things are happening. When we talk about corruption, what are we talking about here? It's an act of receiving, asking, or giving an asset or something or to gratification to induce a person in favor of oneself for corrupt intent, for personal favor from a corporate institution, or for a gain at the expense of the state or the entity that the person works for. And in every corruption, even though some of them can be undertaken by individuals like embezzlement, two entities are involved, the taker and the giver. And when we talk about culture, what are we talking about here? It is the values, beliefs, behaviors that determine how some people or group of people interact, perform, handle business, and even behave. Our corruption culture represents the core values, ideology, and practice that we as a society has accepted. And as is said by some group of people, the standard you pass by is a standard you accept. It also requires some mental and psychological programming to be ethically resilient to resist any corrupt practices if we want to have a change. So we need some mental programming as a team. Again, some questions about corruption. Most governance regimes are composed of the elected political elite, traditional rulers, religious leaders, spiritualists, and the rest. Each of these groups have a set of standards and values set for itself, be they written or not. They also have their power domain and the resources they control. And as you rather indicated in the opening address, corruption is about leadership. So corruption is a leadership issue. Corruption is also a governance issue. Corruption is a development issue. Corruption is a social issue. Corruption is a traditional governance issue. Corruption also involves constitutional and legislative concerns. Corruption now is a security issue. It's a sustenance issue, and also it's a resource distribution issue. Corruption is a fairness issue, and corruption also is a legacy issue. Corruption now is a value and standard issue. And again, corruption is also trust and confidence issue. The question still remains whether we are having standards, the values, and we are practicing adhering to them. Sometimes the laws in the books are different from the laws in practice. And it is the observed gaps that we seek to identify and address in my presentation for the next 40 minutes. Forms of corruption that we can identify, we know them, but let's run through them. Bribery, extortion, fraud, embezzlement, nepotism, cronyism and favoritism, appreciation of public assets, appropriation of public assets and property for private use, sexual favors, promises, influence peddling, including fake news, seeking confidential information or favors, leniency, special privileges, contracts, abuse of discretion, conflict of interest, and political bargains. These are forms that we are aware. We will come to them as we move on. Now, what are the characteristics of corruption? Corruption is universal. It's not only applicable or happening in Africa. It's happening all over the world. Corruption now is central in political contestations. When people are looking for power, they will accuse each other of corruption and stuff like that. So it's central to political contestation, especially in Africa. Corruption is an obstacle to growth. It costs money and lives. It undermines the rule of law. It challenges legitimacy of government. The various coup d'etats we are beginning to see in Africa now, most of them are talking about corruption as one of the reasons why they thought they should overthrow the democratically elected governments. So corruption now is a challenge to government. And corruption also now increases the costs of business. So the issue or the benefit or the resource is given to the highest bidder. That is the characteristics of corruption. Now let's look at corruption types that prevails in the world. About 7 of them are identified here. Got the real corruption where it is difficult to even identify corruption. We have the system called the widespread corruption, where corruption can be found everywhere. We have systemic corruption, where the system has broken down so much that everybody sees corruption to be normal. We have well-organized corruption, where people plan and attempt to influence or corrupt people in power or position or influence. What we call the chaotic corruption, where there's no order, everybody is doing whatever they want. And we have the low level or the petty corruption, and we have the high level or the grand corruption. I said that to state that widespread corruption, systemic corruption, well-organized corruption, chaotic, low-level and high-level corruption are endemic in Africa, except for the real ones. So it means that we sit in the continent where all these types manifest in various forms, all levels, across board. Now, how do you do a culture change? Every change comes with opposition or resistance. But the point is that to have a change, the populace must be exposed to the impact of corruption, and that we must have effective communication, education strategy. The first thing is that we must let people know the cost of corruption to the global or the local economy. As corruption impacts on sustainable development, and as I said, World Bank estimates that corruption alone leads to the loss of about $2.6 trillion or 5% of global GDP. And of the $5.7 trillion that is spent every year on health, a substantial amount is also lost through corruption. About $500 million, $1 billion is also lost. That's the impact of corruption. Our people must know that we must be transparent in the treatment of corruption. If we don't know, you cannot treat. It means that transparency calls for regulations and authorization. Transparency calls for us improving the remuneration structure of workers within the entity and the discussion. We must also look at the characteristics of our tax system as a body. We must also look at our spending decisions. Provisions of goods and services below market price, you must look at that. Why is that somebody's prices are cheaper than the rest in the market? But also look at the type of political system we are talking about. Are we embracing democracy or authoritarianism, or our area is traditionally controlled? In Nigeria, for example, we have the mixture of Islamic religion, traditional control, and political elites. Ghana has similar about traditional control and political elite. So which of these are we embracing, or has a factor to play in us understanding the corruption you are dealing with? So you're looking at penalty systems and regimes, and that's where most African countries are failing. Some of them have fantastic laws, Ghana, Nigeria, and mention them. AU even has the whole corruption appraisal systems. But the laws in the books, as I indicated, sometimes it's not applied well when we are looking at it from the perspective of corruption, where cronyism and government control is key. And also look at the examples set by our leaders. Are they setting the right example for us to follow? If I want to change, I want to sometimes emulate from my leader. The leader becomes my mentor, he becomes my light, and he becomes the person I want to follow. And there's a lack of political will in most African states where politicians, even though they promise on the back of corruption, when they are contesting for positions, come and they are not able to do anything. Examples abound in Angola, Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and even Chad. And we also like, how do we assess and measure corruption? We must also look at that from that perspective, and the control of the economy by internal and transnational criminal syndication. Africa is becoming a center for some of these syndicates. So the people that we want to change must have understanding of this. Must also learn from history. There's a charter called the Charter of the Mande Empire, the Kurukan Fuga, which was enacted in 1235 BC by the Mali Empire I wish after this discussion, we can go and have a look at it. The charter has so many articles, but 4 of them I want to emphasize here. That everybody has the right to life, to the preservation of physical environment. And one critical point I want to emphasize here is that it said the rules set are supposed to be obeyed. And there are certain rules for punishment for disobedience. This coming from 1235 AD. These rules were set by our forefathers, even though oral, and they would try to use this one to control the behavior and life of the society. If you come to Africa now, are we applying the historical anecdote in the things that we do as people? So we must look at that and we must also respect and honor our inheritance and our environment. We must also have a fair idea about education and exposure that UNDP has a corruption matrix, which they call the UNDP Building Capacity Matrix for Corruption. What they are saying is that corruption is equal to monopoly and discretion minus accountability and transparency. It means that all that I spoke about, corruption has a key when transparency and accountability is key. So our social, judicial, political, and economic checks and balances must come to play. We want to build capacity of our people, they must know that. The other one is that we must also look at corruption from local circumstance. Yes, we are aware corruption is universal, but Africa has abundant wealth of natural resources. So the resources must, by all means, invite investors and invite people to come and work on them. But the region remains the most undeveloped due to the effect of corruption. African societies are principally democratic. However, there's a mix of traditional authorities are indicated against corruption and stuff like that. And the typical political system that we are embracing now, democratic or traditional or religious, must dictate the choices we make as citizens. We must also build capacity for anti-corruption training. The citizens must be educated and trained in soft skills such as assertiveness and inquisition and etc. We must ensure that our citizens are trained. We must also expose our employees and third parties on corruption and bribery laws. Those will allow them to acquire or question their representatives, managers, and leaders about practices of corruption as they find them. We also have legislative arrangements. Most anti-corruption efforts are mandated to appease and judge the public, but in practice, they don't achieve the intended objective. There's lack of legitimate and institutions and adherence to the rule of law. As we could see, most corruption-fighting entities are even nominated or selected by incumbent governments. I think these arrangements must change. And because of that, most of the corruption-fighting institutions are not able to flex their muscles to expect that the government will not say anything. So that particular arrangement, you must look at it. If you want to have a change, then that arrangement of selecting people must be changed. As I indicated earlier, we must also review the remuneration of public sector staff. Most of the pay they pay them are not anything to say good about. It's important we look at the inflationary rate and also adjust their salaries so that they will not be vulnerable to corruption. And African youth are demanding 2 things by a survey conducted by African Youth Survey in 2022, that the government must give them well-paying jobs and the government must also ensure that corruption is reduced. So it means that corruption is now becoming a youth issue and the youth are considering that. There must be regulations and transparency. Transparency is everything. It's about knowing who, why, what, how, and how much. It means shedding light on formal and informal rules, plans, process, and actions everybody must know. Transparency helps the public hold all power to account for the common good. In the military, for example, if somebody commits a crime, he can easily decipher the punishment of the crime because there's transparency about the laws and the regulations that will apply in respect of that particular crime. Transparency is very, very important. We must gain knowledge about the target country because we cannot apply all the fit-all standards that development agents are bringing across. It's important to adequately assess the social, political, cultural, economic context of the country in order to fully understand how corruption manifests itself in a particular situation. So even though we are all Africans, the situation applying to Nigeria may not necessarily be applicable to Ghana or in Gabon or to Sudan or to whatever country. So it's important that we must be so country specific and contextualize our approach from that angle. The application of one fits all by donor agencies has failed to deliver. So we must begin to reassess and look at what we can do better. We must also enact and implement anti-corruption laws. As I said, most countries have, but they are not sufficient. Again, due to technological advancement, some of the laws are not properly applicable. So you must review, you must do new laws, you must also share these laws with the people for whose benefit the laws are made. And community-based diagnosis is very important. The law that we make, we must bring it from the bottom up. The communities and the people on whose behalf the laws are made must participate in getting the laws enacted. Then, as I said, we must also expand corruption appraisals in other sectors. Chieftaincy, education, health, sports, religion. Corruption must go there. We should not only target the political elite, even though they are there to keep faith for our resources. It's important that we expand the corruption bucket, the basket. Now, we must also maintain vigilance. Vigilance against corruption is essential to root it. Due diligence of third parties, you must follow up. We must set limitations, for example, for gifts. We must also review our policies and monitor and audit the policies and the programs we put for ourselves, especially at the corporate level. These things must be done. We must be vigilant, auditing processes, monitoring processes, reporting regimes, and all must be adhered. We must also collaborate with other parties. Here, I'm talking about how sometimes the West do not support the things that we do in Africa. For example, we are saying that there's a capital flight of maybe Nigeria to maybe Switzerland. I was expecting the Switzerland government, if it's going to help Nigeria to fight corruption, to alert the Nigerian government. So we are talking about collaboration here. This collaboration must be deepened so that when one corruption occurs or the person escapes the nets from a particular country and goes to a Western country, the country must come on board and support our respective countries with the corruption, because capital flight is a major concern in our fight against corruption on the continent. You must have policies for guidance and must be known by all. As I said, gives declaration of conflict of interest, must set convenient corruption reporting accounting system and monitor through. And these are basics, but they can help to put people in check. The demonstration of political will, which is a major problem in most African countries. Governments come on power, but they are not able to do anything because they fear that when they do anything, the people may not necessarily vote for them. But the point is that they are our leaders, and everybody learns communicating of a country-specific integrity system. Here I'm looking at public awareness, public anti-corruption strategies, public community participation, watchdog agencies, the judiciary, the media, the private sector, international cooperation, educational institutions, and indeed religious entities. Because most of our areas that we stay, the traditional authority has power sometimes over the government-elected official. So it's important that our integrity system becomes specific to the specific area that we want to target. And awareness is very, very important. Integrity is very, very important. Now, the African context. There's no easy solution to the problem of corruption in Africa. And it is also a complex issue that's often deeply rooted in our cultural, social, and economic factors. And we must know that any idea of change in Africa is expected to be resisted. We must also know that in Africa, for us to be successful, we must strengthen and enforce our anti-corruption laws. Most of the current laws are not effective enough. For example, some of the laws were done when technology has not boomed as we see today. Now, because of technology, people are not even using the natural barriers to transport monies. By a click of a button, somebody can transfer money from Ghana, Nigeria, Togo to maybe another country, or to a haven. So anti-corruption laws must be reinforced, must also strengthen them. You must review them. We must also promote ethical values of integrity, service, and discipline. And here, I wish that we can add this one to educational curriculum, so that the young guy who is growing up is imbibed with this integrity, service, discipline, values, so that when he grows, that will guide the person's behavior and actions. Because we're talking about culture, and the value system that we embrace has a natural relationship with the things we will do when we grow up or when we are exposed to power. When the person is exposed to these values before the person becomes powerful, then it is better, or it is likely that he will change his attitude towards gratification and become more concerned about service to his people, be disciplined, and uphold integrity. Again, we must also enhance the capacity of law enforcement and oversight agencies. Most law enforcement agencies in Africa are just for the sake of it. Sometimes you talk to people, it's like they want to do something and they are told to stop. They are told to back out. They are told to lower their guard. They are told to relax. They are told to reduce their speed as to how they want to go. So we must build their capacity and ensure that what we given them to do, we support them with the resources and the motivation to do so. Africa here must also foster the culture of public participation. You must encourage the public to participate in corruption-related issues. As I said, every corrupt individual lives in a society. So if the society is not given the opportunity to participate, how would they report? How would they put them in check? How would they even frown upon corruption-related acquisitions of assets? So the community or the public must be encouraged to participate in this culture change that we are talking about. We are also saying that Africa must push for serious international cooperation. Yeah, the development agencies are here, but what they are doing is not enough. So we must push for it. And we also have equal application of justice, which has eluded Africa as a continent. For instance, somebody steals one fowl, the person is jailed for 6 years. Somebody steals 2 billion and the person is not even jailed. The person has all manner of reasons why he cannot come to court. The person is sick. The person is becoming mentally deranged. So all these things also doesn't inure our fight against corruption. You want to have a cultural change of mindset. We must apply the law equally, and the justice must be seen to be equally or fairly applied. It's important we look at that from that perspective as well. And I've mentioned this, political will is a major concern. In my country, Ghana here, you have a major problem with illegal mining, where in fact, almost every sector of the cocoa growing areas in Ghana is inundated by illegal mining operations. Almost all our water bodies are becoming bad. Some of them cannot be drunk directly from the water stream. Interestingly, the government came to power and enacted or started a committee to look at how we can deal with illegal mining menace. Along the line, the committee has collapsed, and now there's free for all kind of illegal mining. There's lack of political will here. I'm very sure you look at Nigeria, the other project the government wanted to do but has stalled. Lack of political will. So it's important we look at demonstration of political will, especially by the political elite. AU leadership must also come on board. Africa is sitting in isolation. Every country wants to mind its business, but that's not the case. Even though AU has an anti-corruption benchmark, it's important AU also begin to look at Africa as an entity and also begin to benchmark and also assess African governments or how they're implementing anti-corruption regulations and regimes. This will help AU to maybe improve or fashion out better responses to the issues that confront Africa in result of corruption this time. We must also eliminate the perception of unequal treatment at the international level. This is very critical. I'm coming from the back of International Criminal Court, where other African countries are accusing it of doing selective application of justice in the world. Are all people who are corrupt treated the same in the international arena? That perception must be eliminated at the international front. So we are talking about cooperation. This must be critical, because if you only arrest or talk about corruption in Africa when you have one next door in maybe Europe or Asia or whatever, it is important that we equally apply. We must also alert and return laundered money from Africa. And here I'm talking about the same equal perception. As I indicated earlier, we are told that most countries, Switzerland and other havens, France, are holding on to monies stolen from African governments. They are expected to help our governments retrieve the money so we can also use them, one, to improve our confidence level, and also use it to improve development. Interestingly, African governments are having a hard time to get these monies repatriated to us. So it's important that if the world is going to help ourselves, then all of us must be interested in returning laundered money from Africa to Africa for us to use it to develop our country. Again, we must also look at the reward and the punishment regimes we have in Africa. What is the punishment for corruption? What is the punishment for somebody stealing government money? Somebody buying a whole wine or champagne at such an expensive price? Somebody involved in corrupt activity at the expense of society? So these rewards must be looked at. The punishment regime must be clear and must be swift, must be on point. Those who also report corruption-related incidents might be rewarded. But these things are not done properly, especially the punishment side. Whether we like it or not, punishment causes people to change. Even if they will not change completely, at least there's some degree of change that will endure. Interestingly, our punishment regimes are not enough. A minister, for example, embezzles money and is only made to resign. Is that enough? Meanwhile, as I indicated, a small fry in the society goes to collect a bribe along the roadside, police arrest the individual, and the person is imprisoned. So we must offer the right reward, fair reward system, and the punishment must be just, must be fair, must be transparent. One critical issue that Africa needs to do is begin to change our education curricula, where we are bringing the teaching of values as part of our training regime. So we are talking about values of integrity, values of honesty, values of modesty, values of sacrifice, values of discipline, and values of stewardship. If you have these values imbibed in you right from the onset, in your formative years, there's a high likelihood that when you are exposed to power, authority, and money, at least you'll be circumspect in how you treat these resources. So I'm recommending that our education institutions must bring all this board our young ones before they become adults. I'm concluding to say that corruption flourishes in the dark. It prevents growth and social equity. It creates the basis for social and political instability, as is being seen in many parts of Africa. Over 55% of capital flight from Africa is from oil-rich nations, and Nigeria alone, between 1970 and 2018, lost about $4.67 billion due to capital flight. We need to deal with the canker, and the time is now, and that in country after country, the people are demanding actions for corruption-related issues. In Africa, the appetite for democracy is strong, particularly the Western style democracy. However, we require a combination of institutional, legal, regulatory measures, as well as cultural and social mindset changes. We must change our mindset. Our culture must come into play. Our social arrangement must come to play when we are establishing or crafting legal and regulatory frameworks. We need to promote youth education on social responsibility and appropriate standards of ethics on the part of private and public corporations, including transnational corporations and individuals. Because we have seen that transnational corporations sometimes influences the actions and behaviors of people who put in positions of trust. Equality under the law, freedom of speech, and free and fair elections are seen by the youth as pillars of democracy. But we need to shift our mindset and have the right leadership with the willpower to confront corruption, irrespective of the consequences. We must strive to expose corrupt activities and be ready to accept the risks inherent with it. We must keep the public sector honest. We must be transparent and accountable. And we must do everything possible to stop dishonest practices. We must ensure that the public sector employees act in the public interest. And we must, as I said, we must eschew dishonesty and embrace modesty, integrity, service, and discipline. Our culture shift will signify our tolerance level for corruption. And I think that if you look at all these blocks and position them in the right frame at the right time at all the levels, our country, Africa, and the world will be seeing improvement as far as corruption fight is concerned. On that note, I want to thank you very much for your attention, and we'll open the gate for discussions. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Double Doctor. We are so happy to have you here today. Now, before we proceed, I would like to welcome the Regional Director of Chartered Institute of Leadership and Governance, Nigerian Chapter, Dr. Segun Ojarotade. Please, Doctor, you are welcome. Kindly unmute and address us, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Ebenezer, for this well-researched presentation this afternoon. We really appreciate your time, your contribution, your input to this topic this afternoon. I must to thank you for all the content you put together for this delivery this afternoon. I'm sure by the time we begin to make our inputs, more questions will come up, and you'll be able to do more justice to various questions. I want to thank all our participants from different countries, especially from Ghana, who have joined us to attend today's program. And I want to also appreciate all our fellow members, our professors, full members, and all the lovers of our countries who deem it fit that the aspect we are trying to follow to encourage individual, we add more value to our national. Everyone who have seen the need to contribute to the leadership development of our country. This topic is a very important topic. We are looking at part one of it, and I can assure you that part two is coming up. Yes, part two of this topic is coming up. I want us to take the recommendations by the double Dr. Ebenezer Kwakye serious. He has really recommended a lot of things. In our own way, we can do the one we can. Why in our own offices, we are expected to advocate for some of these changes in our various organizations. As you can see from the Transparency International Index, Africa is not the only corrupt country in the world. A lot of people think, your country is the worst, this or that. No, ranges from one African countries to Europe, to Asian, to Americans, Middle East, Eastern Europe. Just that the level of corruptions index are different. That's what we observe. But you and I can reduce or change this Transparency International Corruption Perception Index going forward. And that's the purpose of this topic today. So I want to encourage all participants, see how you can advocate for more of this recommendation in this part 1 of this topic. And I wish us fruitful deliberation as we move on. Thank you, the Public Relations Officer, as we continue. I'll be back to also ask my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We're happy to have you talk to us. Now, we are going to open the floor for questions and answers. I believe we have learned a lot and we are expecting answers for certain questions that may be bothering us. We have been able to look at this topic, corruption, culture of corruption, how to manage it. Now, I would like us to take note of our icons. Yes. Now, I want anyone who has a question, kindly raise your hands so we can call you. Now, before we do that, I think we have a question at the chat session by Godwin A. He said, well done. Could you please explain the meaning of the corruption index? What is good or bad? Okay, he said, sorry if I missed it as you made your presentation. So he wants you to tell him or tell us the meaning of corruption index. What is good or bad about it? So sir, please, the floor is open. Let's begin with this. You can answer this while others prepare to ask their questions.
Thank you very much. The corruption index in itself is not bad, but as it was indicated by the executive director, it seems to be for one-fit-all kind of appraiser that they are doing. They are looking at a lot of factors, including governance, perception about the civil society and all. So it is a good starting point. However, each country is supposed to divide its own based on the index and look at what they can do, not necessarily to rebut the grades or the scores given them. At least it gives us a fair idea how, as a global entity, we are all faring with one purpose, sort of. But our cultural divide, social arrangement, traditional arrangement, political issues, resource mobilization, all these things are things that each country must also sit back and evaluate. But what is critical about this and which makes it good is that based on the global accepted benchmarks, Africa is not improving. And at least it's a source of a worry. So it's important that we look at the key issues. But as we indicated, most of the areas that are also corruption endemic are not captured. The focus more or less has been mostly on the political elite. But African societies, diverse as we are, we need to also have our own individually crafted benchmarks that will help us to itemize, isolate, and also follow through with corruptions that we can isolate, pick up. For example, in country Ghana here, a chief may sell one land for 3 people, but this corruption perception index is not capturing that kind of activity. So they're looking at risk for people in whose hands resource has been entrusted. And I think that no matter how you see it, it's a good foundation for us to build on. That's what I will say for now.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have Joachim Ndego. Please, Joachim, kindly unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are hearing me now.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Good.
Hear you, please.
I want to thank the presenter. He has done a very good work on this day's presentation. He made a very good research, and I want to appreciate him. Thank you so much for helping us out with the topic.
Thank you.
Mine actually is not a question, but a concern which I want to show. When you look at corruption in its entirety, is a thing of the mind. that is occasioned by, it could be as a result of poverty, it could be as a result of those in authority not providing for the future, or there's no adequate contingency plan for people. For instance, if I work in an organization and I know in the next 15 years I'm going to retire, and I have something that will take me through all throughout my life, the limit to which I will get involved in corruption will be highly limited. But in a situation where nothing is provided, it becomes a good opportunity for one to help his or herself. Then in our society today, especially looking at Africa, a lot of persons are jobless. A lot of persons are quite unemployed. They must do something to survive. There must be survivors somewhere, okay? And let me take a Nigerian factor. For instance, somebody may even work for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. He doesn't have a salary yet, either because one government agency has not paid or one contractor has not paid. How will the people live? Okay, the people who also have a job may even be underpaid. I look at Nigerian case again. Our senator today earns about 29 million naira, about 29.4 million as alleged. And the minimum wage in our country is 30,000, which they are struggling to approve. We go to the same market, we access the same fuel, the same road, and everything the same. How can we afford this? This becomes a problem where everybody will find a way to help themselves. Then if I look at this at the international scene, the United Nations, the Europe, the Western world, they're also not helping us. Every day they preach and teach that Africans are corrupt, but all the process of corruption leave the shore of Africa, and they are domiciled and they are kept there in Europe and the Western world. So how well are they doing it? Before someone picks 1 naira or 1 kobo or $1 out of this country, there should have been provisions or rather adequate description of what that funds will be used. And on getting to where the process of corruption will be deposited, and they notice that there should be a system that will be able to check that and repatriate those funds almost immediately. So there are a whole lot of factors everywhere. But what I'm holding so strong at this point in time is corruption is a thing of mind, because not everybody is corrupt. It's a choice. Unfortunately, in our society today, our government, our people, our culture, and a whole lot of them recognize and appreciate people who get illegal wealth. Ordinarily, our society should have been appreciating and encouraging competence. Anyone who has been able to do good innovation, our culture, our government will have said, yes, thumb up, you have done this way to encourage people. But our society today, once you have ill-gotten wealth, they will give you chieftaincy title, they appreciate you. Even when police, you commit crime, police will not arrest you. Even when they arrest in the next 24 hours, you can call anybody and you are free from them. I think all of these things put together are the reasons why you have our society within our region here highly corrupt, and they are not doing enough in order to change the negative narratives. I want to stop here so far. Thank you so much for your audience.
Thank you, sir. I equally share with your submission. As I said, corruption is a multifaceted issue. As I said, the focus is what you must look at. Which area are we focusing on? So this 1 hour discussion will be exhausted, however, but it brings some of the issues to the fore. And I share your concern, and I cannot agree further. It's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that good one. We have Mr. Karungi Babatunde having his hands raised up. I'm going to call you, but hold on. Let me call Godwin A. Mr. Godwin A. Kindly unmute and ask your question clearly. Your message on the comment section is not so clear. Yeah. I'd like you to unmute and ask the guest speaker directly what you are having issues.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Innocent. And our presenter this morning. Thank you for your vast experience and how you try to help us understand this challenge that we are facing in Africa in particular. What I wanted to understand in the index is what should a country be looking at? Where you have a situation, a country is rated 70 to 100 by 100, another is 13 by 100. Who is doing better? You know, because we're looking at progress now. Who is doing better? Is the 113 that is worse off, or the 170 that is better, you know, of the two bad apples? So that's really what I wanted to see here, yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Sorry, maybe I didn't get the first drift right. Based on the benchmarks or indices, there are a number of things, including good governance, transparency, judicial regimes, application of justice and all. And each of them is rated and they accumulate it up to 100, which they give it 100%. So the higher your number, quote unquote, the better your score or the better your assessment or your better application of those indices that they have put together. So if, for example, somebody has 68, as in respect of maybe America, it means that they are better in respect of corruption perception than Africa, which has 32. So the 68 is 68% out of 100. So it is better based on their indices. So in that spread, Africa falls below even the 50%, quote unquote, the midpoint. And averagely, Africa is not doing well as per their benchmark. Yes, sir.
Okay, this is clear. Thanks a lot. Sir.
It's a pleasure, bro. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm going to call Mr. Karunwi Babatunde to ask his question. But before that, please, I'd like us to go to the chat section. The secretary has dropped the attendance register. I would like you to click on the link and register your presence today, which will be documented. Please just click it. You see bit.ly/CILG LDF register. Click on it and register your details so we know you were present for today's meeting. So, all right, Mr. Babatunde, kindly unmute and ask your question. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, wonderful facilitator, Dr. Ebenezer.
Thank you.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karunwi Babatunde. Sir, I look at our challenges in Nigeria, where corruption is endemic. And, it has gotten bad to the extent that you can see it everywhere. And even at the end of affairs, with the governance, the federal. Now, what do you think we citizens, what do you think we can do? What do you think we can do to, to at least to make a change with this corruption system? Because as we already said, the corruption affects country development, and that's what we are experiencing now. And majority of the policy governance is not really addressing our challenges. So what do you think we can do? What do you have for us here in Nigeria, sir? That's my question.
Thank you very much. Corruption takes time to come to the fore. And as I indicated, sometimes the standard you pass by is the standard you accept. So corruption, as indicated earlier also, is a mindset, it's a value-driven issue. That's why in my statement, I was saying that, yes, it is happening now, but what can we do to ensure that those who take over do not fall into the trap? That's where the youth education in integrity, discipline, service is critical. You must also get one thing clear. In every society, the family is a foundation for child's upbringing. So what are we doing in the family setting? What examples are the parents or the community setting for the child? If we embrace opulence and gratify display of wealth, there's a high likelihood that the child from that community will thrive as early as possible to also assess same kind of benchmarks, which is the standard of measurement for growth, for success, and stuff like that. In Nigeria, I'm aware there's a whole regime of regulations that's supposed to regulate behavior of public officials and those in public authority. What we need to do is that there shouldn't be any distinction between the laws in the books and the laws in action. It's one of the things that research has demonstrated, that most often than not, the application of the rules that we set ourselves are not sufficient enough to satisfy the intent for which those rules and regulations were put across. So it's important that, for one, the regulations must be clear, and people who violate or who have been investigated and found to have been culpable of corruption are dealt with by law in a swift, fair, transparent manner to set as deterrent. The other thing people in Nigeria can do is to punish people, not necessarily by law, by not returning them to power. Interestingly, as you mentioned, poverty and other issues, during the time of election, the very people who are complaining, it's not only Nigeria alone, across Africa, the very people who are complaining today about, for example, as an example, a minister being corrupt, when they are showered with some largesse from the same minister, they'll begin to sing praises. That's why the mindset changes will come in honesty and integrity and service, and ensuring that things we do are sustainable. You cannot prosecute anybody if there are no laws to hold the person to have committed an offense. So take, for example, there's a traditional ruler, for example, who is seen to have maybe embezzled money. Under which law are you going to try and maybe prosecute that individual? So we must look at all these government regulations across board. As I said, that in our quest to talk about corruption, we tend to focus on the political corruption, the executive side. But our legal, social, cultural arrangement has other issues that comes to the fore. And as I alluded to, if you employ somebody, give him commensurate salary, that will not the person be envious to steal your money. The other contributor make a very solid point that some people don't have hope in their future. So if they lay hands on anything that can guarantee their future, they are likely to do it. However, if we are poor, it doesn't mean that you should be a thief. That's where integrity, values, and good manners, which is supposed to have foundation from the home and education level run through. You and I, for example, maybe we are too old to change our mindset. But it's about 70 million population of youth out there whose mindset must be changed now, so that they don't begin to look at getting rich quicker, but looking at sustaining the society through discipline and issues that can confront us. So it's important we look at it from that angle, then we push it from there. So it's a myriad of issues that cannot be solved in one day. But as they said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. Let's begin to conscientize our people and agree in principle that corruption is not good. In that state, we'll begin to reduce the impact and acquisition of wealth, as well as the society that will be left after us may be better than what we are speaking about today. So that's what we'll say in respect of Nigeria for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That's a great one. We also have other persons who want to ask their questions. I can see Omobolaji Gani Oladipo. Can you unmute and ask your questions? And please, let's make our questions brief, please. Omobolaji Gani Oladipo, kindly unmute. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
I hope you are all hearing me clearly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to quickly chip in a little into two of the things we have been looking at.
The first thing is the corruption index. The way I see it as a person is that it is the ease of perpetuating corruption in a country. That is, if you go to this country, how easy is it for you to be there and be corrupt? Then the concern of the government of that country, that these people who are corrupt, what do we do about them? Is the government concerned, or the government is just looking at it and say, well, if he can steal more, let him go? So that particularly is what is looking at the index, but how they calculate it, I don't know. And as we all know, it is easier to steal in Nigeria than to steal in the US, even though we know they steal in the two places. So that's what the index is as far as I see it. It might not be the same thing, but what I also want to talk about is that most of the time, I see it that in Africa, we are chasing shadows when we talk about corruption. The system that we are sitting upon, which is the root of what we are sitting upon, is what we should address. Most of our systems in Africa does not have accountability. For example, you are in a ministry, at the end of the year, they say, draw up your budget. You draw a budget. During the process of that year, when the budget is supposed to be run, they release money for specific purposes. When the year ends, nobody tells you to come back and say, how much have you spent on this thing? Where is the project? What is the level? Another budget is drawn on the same budget head, and they will request for money. They will still release money for the same budget. Nobody asks anything. The problem there is this. If you are operating in such a system, it will take the act of God for you to be honest. Because you know that this money they have released for this department, nobody is going to ask us how you will spend it. And if we ask for the same thing next year, they will still give us the same money. So people, even the will to want to do it is not there for the people, because there's no accountability. If there's an accountability system where people will say, this is the project we are doing, this is all what we have done, this is how the project was awarded, these are the people that they are giving, this is the level we have reached. When you release this money, this is where we are going to further on the project. That will immediately let the people know that this money they are giving us is not free money. We must account for every penny that we have spent on this project. And once they start to do that, everything will fall in place. The problem I also have again is for the Senate and House of Rep to take over the work of the budget ministry. The people who knows nothing about budgeting, people who knows nothing about accountability, they now set up a committee. They say, we are in charge of that ministry. And so we are going to look at the budget of the ministry. What are they looking at? Some of them don't even know anything about project management. Some of them don't even know about anything that they are talking about. All what they are looking at is, are they asking for staff? Okay, we have people that we are going to tell, don't let them take anybody. We are putting them there. Are they doing projects? Okay, with our people that will do the project. I am sitting in my office, people come to meet me and say, they say that project is senator's project. And the senator wants 20 million before they can execute the project. I wonder, I say, with 20 million, does he even know how much the project is? Does he know what is the profit that is in that project? They just ask for money anyhow because they are looking at it that you don't need to execute the project. Just collect the money, share to whom you are going to share to. Next year, they will give the same money again for the same project. So because the accountability is not there, that is why everybody is doing whatever they want in the system. And once they see that you are going to be accountable for every penny, people will sit up. You don't need to arrest anybody. You don't. When you go to court, you say, this thing that you did not account for is the reason why we are taking you to court. And you must account for that money which you are supposed to account for. So there will be the case in the court will be more defined than the case of he's corrupt, he has taken 2 billion. And then there's no record to show that he has taken the 2 billion. They are just mentioning figures anyhow. That accountability, we must look at it, even as our own sense of leadership and governance. If we can introduce accountability back into the system, then be sure that whatever budgeted that we are addressing, we'll be able to take it properly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that quick one. We are so happy to have that, Mr. Mobolaji. We have several people who are still waiting to ask their questions. Before that, I would like to read out a particular question, yes, at the chat section. Yes, okay. We have Chief is it Chief Sir P. Osakwe? He said, I wish to support the paper. Sir, my take is that the solution to corruption in Africa is by elimination of any person or persons, group. Let death penalty be the judgment. Wow, that is great. We are going to talk about that. We also have another person, Monday Nna. Yes, he said, his question is, sir, during your presentation, you did mention that both the giver and the receiver are both guilty of corruption. Several foreign countries help corrupt people to keep their stolen money, but these countries are not mentioned during assessments. Only the countries of corrupt individuals, yes, are mentioned. Why? So our guest speaker, okay. Double Doctor, please address this situation. Thank you, sir.
For sure. Thank you very much. Remember that I said I have a problem with the subject of international cooperation.
Yes.
They will come here and give you all the benchmarks or indices that you must follow to be qualified to be quote unquote corruption free. Fantastic. However, if you talk about the number of or the amount of money and assets of Africa that's also stolen and stored elsewhere is also very, very significant, as I indicated by the values I stated. And as I indicated, these monies are logged in the banks of foreign countries who themselves are rated to be, quote unquote, higher in corruption than us. It means that there's a problem. So as I said, if you want to cooperate in full for each of us to have mutual benefit, if our money is stolen and laundered in your country, you must come on board, alert me, and make arrangements and return them to me if I discover. Even if I do not discover, you must alert me and let me know that this money came from so person who is a minister in your location and that we want to arrange, help you interrogate the issues and get the money back. So whether we like it or not, that's why I said that we must have local specific benchmarks for ourselves. The money has been stolen, but the person who stole has been arrested, but the area kept, they're keeping the money and they're using it for their own development. If they tell you the amount of money that other government functionaries have logged in other countries that have been used to develop their country, it will be mind-boggling. But the point is this, we must come together. As I said, that's what I said, AU must come in as a body and lead the conversation. Those whose country the monies are locked must also come in and lead the conversation. Else, we'll be seeing the issue to be skewed. And I also indicated to you, African countries are beginning to have problems with international, legal controls. And I talk about the International Criminal Court, for example, that they think that it's only African, quote unquote, head of state who are criminalized, whilst others who commit more aggressive or more egregious offenses are left to go because, quote unquote, they come from the West. So I share your concern. They must come to the party and help us. Interestingly, among the indices they are using to measure corruption, that index that you talk about is not there. So it is not measured. But I think that if the index is made broader, we understand where we are coming from as a people. We understand what we can do to help ourselves. Things may be better than FCC today. And I want to say time and again, if you are hungry, it doesn't give you opportunity to go and steal your friend's food. The point they have the right mindset, irrespective of our condition. We may not be very, very amenable to corruption as we see today. The mindset is critical, integrity is critical, honesty is critical, and sustenance of our society is critical. If these things are built into our mindset and our culture, I think that we may not be able to reduce corruption to speak, but at least we'll be able to reduce it substantially. Yes, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We still have more people here. We need to make it very quick. Abila Gaya, you have a question. Please unmute and ask your question. You have 30 seconds to ask your question. Thank you. Abila Gaya.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Engineer Abila Gaya. My questions are, when we look at corruption generally, I believe corruption is the issue of the mind. The mind is very, very fundamental. If you look at Africa or Nigeria, for example, you see that corruption has been, the corruption has been built right from a child when he is very small. And he grows up with it. His mind, his thinking is towards seeing how he can, things are done wrong, and he watches the way things are done wrong. And as he grows up, he goes to school, from primary to secondary to university, he sees all aspects of one criminality or the other going on around. And by the time he grows up, he becomes matured, and then most of us, most of them find themselves in the position of leadership or find themselves in offices, they are working and all kinds of things. Their ideas are there. And then they see people being corrupt, they do one thing or the other, and they found themselves, they escape from whatever issues they have done. They find their way out, and they feel that if you are smart enough, you can do any terrible things or do corrupt things and then escape. That has been the story here in Africa. Like somebody rightly said, the level of corruption in Africa or Nigeria is, when you steal money, you can steal more money in Nigeria, but you cannot steal as much money in the US. You look at the culture that have built in, you see a child right from when he is small, he knows what is wrong and right. And I believe that if we can work on this aspect that our great teacher, the person who is, the major that has talked about culture, if we can build on this culture right from when the child is small, if that culture, if we have been able to transform the culture, all the stories we're talking about, people being honest and whatever in their offices, is difficult. When somebody sees all those kind of opportunities, you can say you can be honest when you don't see the chances. But when the chances come glaring and you notice that things are not working well for you in your own home, or you don't have money to eat, you don't have one thing to order, everybody is busy talking there, it's a big temptation for so many. They will not be able to stand the situation. So I believe that these things have to be imbibed right from the culture and whatever, honesty and integrity has to be done right from when the child is small, right from our lower level, from primary school, secondary school to all levels. You grow up with it. And then when you see the rules are put in, you will learn to respect some of these rules, some of these ideas we're putting around to help us maintain corruptions in the country. But while these things are not put in place, it's going to be very tough and very difficult for us because you talk about it over and over and over. You see the level of corruption is increasing every day. You really wonder whether there is any solution to corruption, especially for us here in Nigeria, whether there's any solution to corruption in Nigeria. Because it is like every day there are new manufacturing or new method of corruption. People, even those of you say you put the right leaders, you find out that even the right leaders, corruption, they enter there through corruption. They rig election, they don't win election, they force themselves into power. So how do you do about that one? So I just want us to look at this aspect. I think it is good to involve this right from our low level, build it up in our curriculums, build it up in all the institutions. Let it sink into everybody's ears. Let them be part of our lifestyle, for the next generation that are coming behind, not for these ones that have already been polluted with corruption ideas in their heads. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaya. This is getting very interesting. Corruption issue in the world is getting very interesting. We still have a lot of people who still want to make contribution or ask questions. First, let me call Mr. Ola Aziz, FCILG, Lagos State Coordinator. Kindly unmute and ask your question or tender your contribution.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mine is not a question per se. It's more of a contribution level. I must sincerely thank the Institute for organizing this kind of gathering. My contribution basically has to do with the fact that when you look at corruption, it's actually not only limited to Africa. And the European world, the Western world, the American, this world, they also have in whatever but their level is so minimal that it doesn't really make much impact in the state or the country or the economy. But lo and behold, I don't want us to actually look at up without actually minding the roots or the down. It's like somebody in Yoruba proverb that says, somebody with wobbling leg, K-leg, the load on top is wobbling because of the friction down. The root of actually corruption starts from our home. You want to send your child on an errand, you got to give him or her a candy. When next you want to send him somewhere else, without actually giving him or her a candy, he will not be motivated. So the point I'm trying to say is to reduce corruption, to eradicate it, which is a little bit difficult, actually start from home. And as the last speaker rightly said, one of the things he mentioned, when people who are in position of authority in the three arms of any government of any country, if they are corrupt or they came in through corruption means, obviously corruption becomes second to nature and it becomes an enduring culture. And as a poet rightly said, water here, water there, and there's no single drop to drink. What does that mean? We are suffering in the midst of plenty. Nigeria as a nation and some countries in Africa, they've got nothing to do with poverty. But because the few ones that are privileged, that are empowered, that are enabled, economic personal wealth. So that is why you discover that we're actually suffering. The road is not fixed. We have infrastructure that are dilapidated. I mean, education is something to whatever. You've got to pay through your nose to send your children to school where we have to get the quality of education you desire. So what all this has to do? But intervention like charters of leadership and governance, USA Nigerian chapter, I most sincerely appreciate them. We might not win the war, right? We might not win the war immediately, but gradually. But just like people said, if you fight corruption, you need to be in a state of armory because corruption will fight you back. For corruption not to fight us back, we need to appeal to our leaders, the political leader, the judiciary leader, the legislative leaders, so that they will know for sure that they are on the keg of powder of gun, and that nothing in life is done in perpetuity. So my appeal to them is possibly let the institute also let them know the economy of corruption. We've actually talked extensively through today's guest speaker, but what is the economy of corruption? And part of the economy of corruption is we will be suffering in the midst of plenty. Well, I most sincerely once again thank the organizer, the guest speaker, and everybody online for their contribution. Us at home, on the street, in government, community, need to fight frontally. And as a matter of rounding up, AU, African Union, ECOWAS, that's the Economy of Africa and West African states, can actually come up and says that any Western world, like Switzerland of this world, that corner, that warehouse are stealing money, they must also be taken to the United Nations for sanction, for reprimand. Because if a thief stole certain things and there's no way to dispose of it, he will not be motivated because there's a place for them to hide the money, right? That is why they are taking it there. You will discover that the money in the economy, Central Bank of Nigeria cannot really tell us accurately the data of the money in the economy, because some of them are trapped in the individual house, apart from those who are in the Western world. And that is why we must continue to fight frontally against the war, against the occurrence of corruption. We must wage war against the corruption. Once again, I thank all the organizers, the awardees and inductees of today. I wish you the best of luck. And I want you to know that the day I joined CILG and I was inducted, I was never the same again. So you are welcome to that elite institute, the first among equal, numero uno institute. Our region director, Dr. Ojaro Tade, I sincerely thank you for doing a good job. Once again, the speaker, thank you. Everybody in the chat room, thank you. The inductees and the awardee, I wish you good luck, and it will be the beginning of great things in your life individually. Innocent Obak, we'll see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir. We are grateful to have you amidst us today. We still have like 2 or 3 persons to ask your questions. Juliana Agaga, please unmute and ask your question. Let's make it very brief, very brief.
Thank you very much. I must thank the Institute for this seminar. Mine is really not a question, but I know corruption is really a problem in Africa, and Nigeria is not different from other African countries, especially Ghana, where I come from. Going straight to my suggestion, I would suggest that the Institute should come out with practical program of activities that they can share or interact directly with all stakeholders, especially leaders in governance, leaders in public institutions, and then the youth, as our presenter rightly mentioned, so that we can start from there. Individually, we can do our parts, but I don't think that will go far. On the issue of the accountability, as one of our presenter rightly said, you realize that in the institution, it's the same thing as it is happening in government. They will ask you to present your budget. They'll give you a ceiling. You will prepare the budget. At the beginning of the year, you will not be giving the money. And at the end of the year, they will ask you to budget again on the same issue. So it is really a problem. Let's see how we can practically tackle this. This is my small contribution. Thank you. And let me take the opportunity to thank the organizers, our presenter, and everybody who contributed in one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. That was a very good contribution, a very nice submission at that. I think the last person we are giving opportunity to talk is Ambassador Gladys Amia Damhen. Kindly unmute and share your opinion.
Thank you very much. I was hoping I get the chance. My name is Amia Damhen, actually, Gladys, a member of the Institute. And thank you to the presenter for today's succinct discussion. I want to ask a question, pronging questions that, how can we begin to have conversations, in Africa? I know we do a lot of talk. They say talk is cheap, but how can we begin to have firm conversations on how Africa should truly help each other? Not only on the bilateral trade talks at continental level or regional level. How can we have solid conversations that we can hold each other in Africa accountable for? We hold nice meetings, nice forums, and after that, what next? Nobody's looking at the checklist, what we wanted to achieve, how are we achieving, what is the monitoring framework, is it working or not working? Do we revisit, do we add new strategies? How do we start having this conversation? Even from grassroots level to local government, to states, national, as the case may be, even at schools, we need to find a way to be having this discussion right at our institutions. Because if you ask young people these days, they will tell you school is calm, because people who are ruling or who are leading them are nothing short of maybe mediocres or non-entities. So they will tell you, why do I have to go to school, go through the stress of school, when at the end of the day, somebody who barely struggled, who barely even got the certificate I have, is ruling me and deciding my future. Also, how can we start having a discussion, conversations on healthy competition at state level in countries? Say, for instance, I want to use, since we've been using Nigeria as the guinea pig, sorry to say that, at state level, what are these competition, healthy competition, developmental competitions we can be bringing forth? And this will be measured to say, okay, yes, this state is doing this state is doing this. At the end of the day, this supportive effort are now collaborated at national level to represent countries, so that when we present ourselves at global front as Africa, we are doing better. We are not like dancing to the gallery of the developmental parties or institutional donors that claim they are coming to support or help us in our country. Can we also begin to write charters, treaties, protocols for Africa that we can hold firmly? Say, for instance, we invoke a certain charter. If something happens in Ghana against a Nigerian, or something happens in Nigeria against a Ghana, what is that charter or that protocol that we can invoke that will keep everybody sure that want to do things rightly? When somebody commits offense in Africa, in The Hague, the person is meant to face war crimes. Who decides that? He didn't. I know, yes, he perpetrated a crime in Africa, but he is being tried at The Hague. So where we need to start discussing that at a level. If if we do not help ourselves, if we do not do this for ourselves, nobody will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you so much. At this point, we have really learned a lot today. I want to say, before we start changing the government, changing the nation, we also must take note that the change must start from us. Yes, it must start from us. Start with us training our children well, start with us living exemplary life, because these people we call leaders were once followers. Same thing they were doing, they transferred to their leadership offices. So I would like us to put all of these things we have learned into action, and not just theoretical. Let us put them into practice. Once we influence one person, that one person influence other people. Before you know it, we are building a great generation free of corruption. Thank you everyone for your audience. Thank you, the guest speaker, Double Doctor. We appreciate your presence today. We have learned a lot. We have learned from your wealth of experience, and we are happy to have you today. The part 2 is going to come, yes, and when it comes, we are going to announce, and everyone is going to take part of it. All right, this is Chartered Institute of Leadership and Governance. Chartered Institute of Leadership and Governance. I'm sure many of us here are members of the Institute. Now, for those who are not members, I'd like to give a very brief introduction about the Institute. Chartered Institute of Leadership and Governance is a professional body established under the laws of the state of New Mexico, the United States of America, with registration number 0001814-071, and is listed on Wikipedia as an American professional institute aimed to build and implement leadership and governance skills in the administration of duties. So CILG is an approach to prepare and equip individuals, just like what we have done today. We have been doing it right from the beginning, and we'll continue to do it. So we equip individuals with ideas and innovations geared towards the proper and effective handling of societal values and problems through the teachings of administrative skills and leadership cues. So our major focus, our vision, is to be the best reference nationally and internationally when it comes to leadership skills and all of that. So please, before I proceed, click on the link at the comment chat session and fill in the attendance. So our mission is to train and certify members through education, of course, through education and instruction in fields relating to leadership and governance. That is our focus, training, equipping you for leadership positions. So when you get there, when you find yourself as a leader, of course, everyone is a leader wherever you find yourself. When you put these skills into practice, you make the place, the economy, the country, wherever you are, to be a better place for everyone. So that's a brief about CILG. There are numerous benefits when it comes to becoming a member of the Institute. The Institute has chapters in several countries. of the world. Yes, several countries of the world, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, different countries in Asia and Europe. So that is, by the way, you can visit our website, CILGNigeria.org, to learn more about us. And you can also visit the global website there on the screen, CILGglobal.org. So for the next induction that is coming up, Leadership and Governance Induction, we have opened a nomination for Leadership and Governance Award. This is what we call Recognition Award. Let me go to the next slide so you can see clearly. Now, Leadership and Recognition Award categories. You can recommend people, yes, people who you believe with evidence fit into these categories. Corporate Excellence Leadership Award, Leadership Award for Good Governance, Award of Excellence in Politics and Governance, Leadership Award of Philanthropy. There are a lot of them. Corporate Sector Leadership Award, Private Sector Leadership Award, Personality Award for Outstanding Leadership, Personality Award for Outstanding Humanitarian Support. All of these are recognition awards which we are giving to leaders, those who qualify for this, to nominate. All you need to do is send us a 500-word article of your nominee. Send it to our email address. You can see it on the screen, info@CILGNigeria.org. Or you can also send to the numbers you are seeing on the screen. You can send to us via WhatsApp, via email. You can send your nominee details to us so we can process the award for them. All of these are aimed to make them do more. Yes, we want to make them do more. The 9th Membership Induction Award in Nigeria will be holding on the 8th of December 2023, about 5 months from today. On the 8th of December 2023, venue, Nigerian Army Resource Center. All new members, if you are a new member yet to be inducted, kindly, we expect you to send 300-word article for our magazine publication. Send it to our email, info@CILGNigeria.org. Now, attach your picture, social media handles, email addresses. Members are also expected to nominate individuals for the recognition award. All members, both new and old, nominate people for the recognition award. All you just need to do is send 500 words about the person, an article about the person, the awardee, picture, his category, the category you want, email address, phone number to us via email. Now, this was going to end July, but we have shifted it. We have shifted it to August. So please take advantage to nominate your leader, those people you want to give an award, you want to recognize. So please, who is talking? Kindly mute. Mr. Taiwa Awusi, kindly mute. Thank you. So take note of this. This is very important. And you can also nominate yourself. Yes, you can nominate yourself. Yes, nominate yourself. All you just have to do, follow this simple procedure, and it will be processed. Now, these are some of the members, new members who will be inducted. Yes, they will be inducted by December. These are new members. We have Pastor Dr. Blessed Isa Musa, FCILG. He will be inducted. We have Judith Scott, yes, will be inducted by December 2023. You can also be part of this. If you are not yet a member, you can be part of this. There are several benefits of becoming a member of this institute. We have Pastor Sunday Bolaji Benjamin. He's also a fellow member who will also be inducted. We have Brigadier General. We have several of them who will be inducted by December 2023. Of course, they will be inducted, they'll be issued their certificates, and they will be given awards. Yes, award of membership. Very importantly, we have many of them. So we expect you to be part of this. So it's not just, it cuts across different spheres of life, not just you are in the political angle, you are this, you are that. Even clergy people are leaders. In fact, they are great leaders. So you can be part of this institute and enjoy the benefits thereof. Now, the simple way to become a member of this institute is via direct membership. For now, no examination, via direct membership. All we just work with is your profile, what you have experienced, your leadership experience, and a whole lot, your education, your age. Just send us your profile, send it to us via email or via the 2 numbers you're seeing on the screen. Just send it to us via WhatsApp or via email, and we will process it. A membership invitation letter will be sent to you, which contains all the details. If you want to make inquiries, you can also contact us through any of these medium, either via WhatsApp or email, and we'll respond to you at any time of the day. Now, these are our contacts. These are our contacts. Email address, you can see them on the screen, info@CILGnigeria.org, public relations @CILGnigeria.org, secretary @CILGnigeria.org. You can reach us via any of these email address anytime, any day. These are our phone numbers. You can see them on the screen. You can reach us via these phone numbers, via call, WhatsApp, text messages, and we will respond to you. Now, these are office address to B40 Danzia Plaza, Central Business District, Abuja. You are in Abuja, you want to pay us a visit, you can come to this address and you will see us there. Thank you so much. Now, before I wrap it up, for this Leadership Development Forum, and even the past ones that you've attended, to gain a certificate for this particular one and the other ones, you only have to pay 10,000 naira to the account number you're seeing on the screen. Just make your payment and send evidence of payment to us via WhatsApp, and you will get your certificate. It's very important to get certificate for such training. I'm going to call my director, the boss, Dr. Shego Jarotade, the regional director of CILG Nigerian chapter, to close this meeting.
Thank you very much, the public relation officer. I must appreciate your contribution. Let me use this opportunity to thank every participant, both the yet to be inducted members, existing members, and the secretary, Faith Oluwatoyin, and to also thank our guest speaker. I want to encourage the upcoming inductees and yet to become a member. The purpose of this program is to also showcase what we do and to draw you closer to us. So if you are yet to be a member, it's an opportunity to become a member. We're having a lot of things that the Institute is doing underground, and it will soon be exposed to us. It will wow a lot of us. In fact, when they expose me to some of the things that are doing underground, I'm very, very surprised, just the way you are as well. So I want you to stay tuned, keep connecting, watch out for the new development that will be unfolded by the end of this year, especially for many of us that have been struggling to attend our program outside the country, in US, in UK. I want you to know that it's difficult for any organization to influence embassy on your behalf. There are parts you need to play, and there are parts every organization needs to play. CILG will play its own part 100%. You too need to play your own part 100%. It's difficult for anyone, even as a governor, you can be denied a visa in embassy here. So now they will talk of whether you're a director or an individual. So it's not in the power of an institute to guarantee you of 100% visa at any embassy. Yes, the institute can only give you necessary documents, yes, to prove what you're coming in to do in this country. So I want to encourage us to be in tune, keep connecting, keep making influence, keep affecting your world. So I want to thank you for your time for attending today's program. We hope to come your way next time. If you want to nominate someone for leadership and governance, as we've said, for fellow member, full member, or for recognition or no, kindly do so as you have been informed. Email us, call us, or chat us up. Please don't be tired of praying for our countries. Don't shift all the blames to only political associates alone. Corruption cut across every sectors. You don't need to become a politician to be corrupt. Even a lot of us, in our own little way, we are also corrupt. Yes. So we should not over-focus on only the political. We've really over-focused on political offices. too much. No. Someone that steals 2,000, someone that steals 2 billion. Corruption is corruption. Promise and fail is corruption. So it's not even until you touch money. No. Promise and fail. What you cannot do, you say you are going to do it. It's also corruption. It cut across all board. It's a thing of the mind as we've been told. But government has a part to play. Institution have a part to play. System have a part to play. Yes. And you as a person too, you also have a part to play. I want to thank you for today's program. I want to thank all the teams. I want to thank all the participants. We need to allow you to go now so that we can catch up with today other activities. I want to thank the Major Double Dr. Ebenezer Kwakye from Ghana and all the participants from Ghana and other countries that join us today. Keep influencing in your space. Keep affecting life in your space. Keep advocating for good leadership, good governance. And one day, Africa will be liberated, Ghana will be liberated, Ethiopia will be liberated, Nigeria will be liberated, and all of us will live in a better world. I'm so sure that Transparency International Corruption Perception Index will change and should begin to change as well. Thank you very much. See you next time.